I'm Nick Nenad,
I'm Jared Smith.
and today we're going to be talking about a lot. Again, first time we're ever doing it live, and we're going to start with the elections. We're also going to talk about college football and the rankings and what we think about the rankings. We're going to be talking about the Cubs a little bit because we didn't get to talk about them on the last podcast, so we want to talk about their World Series win. We're going to give a little shout out to the veterans today and talk about Veterans Day as well. Also, another edition of Do You Care, the first live edition of Do You Care. But Jared, I want to talk about the elections first. Donald Trump wins. Not a lot of people expected that to happen. I want to just get your thoughts so far on the whole election and just about Trump winning and the unexpectedness of it.
Yes, I was very shocked, as I believe most people, at least most people that I knew, were very, very shocked. I had to play Uber the night of the elections. I was taking my parents to the airport in LA. They were going on vacation, and pretty much the entire ride up, we were listening, to the radio, CBS radio, and my dad is just literally in the back, almost having a seizure because he can't believe what's going on. And it was kind of funny, but I really link it back to the media. The media spun this and made it seem like, okay, when Trump first declared that he was going to be a candidate. Mm-hmm. Everyone was like, oh, okay, Trump's just trying to, get some publicity and, try to put his name back out there. And he's just kept growing and growing and growing. And up until Tuesday night, I don't believe many of us thought that he would have actually beat Hillary. But once the polls and the numbers started coming in, and he won Ohio, he won Florida, and, he obviously was able to speak to a lot of people. And, like I said, the media spun it and just made it seem like there was no chance that he would be able to win this thing. And he pulled one of the biggest upsets in the presidential election history, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's the opinion of most Americans right now. Just that nobody expected. And you mentioned that first time we saw him, he came down that elevator. I believe it was his tower.
Trump Towers, I believe.
Possibly, yeah. But so when he did that and he came down and he kind of made fun of the immigrants and said the whole thing about the wall, and we all just thought, okay, this is another celebrity going out and, trying to become president. And you know what? It ended up working. He ended up really rallying his rallies all the time, kind of going crazy, saying a lot of crazy stuff, making fun of all his opponents. It ended up working. And I think you're right about the polls and the media. They acted like Hillary had this giant lead. I don't want to put it all on the media though, because and the polls, because I believe there was a lot of secret Trump voters, a lot of people that didn't say they were voting for Trump, kind of go out and just kind of talk about politics generally, and then those people went out and ended up voting for Donald Trump on election day. I remember a couple people I was hanging out with that night. They had never talked about voting for Trump. Then they kind of talked about more liberal stuff about voting in the election, and then they went out and they ended up voting for Trump. So I think that happened around the country. And you mentioned some of the states that he won that were unexpected: Florida, Ohio, but especially Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania was the big shocking one to me. That's always a blue state. So just kind of a crazy election and just a crazy result. And we've now seen a couple of the protests. We'll move to talk about the protests a little bit, all around the United States in pretty much every single big city. There's been protests, and these protests have been bigger than anything we've seen this year and last year with the Black Lives Matter movement. So what do you think is going on? Do you just think that America is just kind of pissed off about Trump being president?
I think America is still in shock. I still think they're in that shock phase, and they haven't gotten out of that yet. Now, I'm not sure. I understand in a sense why you would, want to protest, and I guess that's a way of voicing your opinion. I don't think it's not going to change anything. What's done is done. Trump is president. Now, if you are going to protest, I think you should do it peacefully, and there are right and wrong ways of protesting. If you want to, like what happened in LA, where the 101 freeway got shut down because people were protesting and literally walking all on the freeway, causing a huge traffic jam and a complete mess when people were just trying to go home. So if you're trying to do that and you're messing with other innocent people who don't have anything to do with this, then I think it's an issue. But if you want to just peacefully walk along the sidewalks have your signs or posters, have a little rant or chant that's, non-aggressive. I'm 100% okay with that. It's not shocking to me that all of these protests are happening around the world. I do think within the next couple days to a week, they will eventually die down because, like I said, Trump isn't going anywhere. He's going to be our next president. So whether we like him or not, I believe we owe him the opportunity to at least get a chance and a crack at proving people wrong and people who don't believe in him wrong. He gets that opportunity now.
Yeah, and you mentioned the protest. They're some of them are more peaceful than others. You mentioned the ones in L.A. Yeah, going on the freeway, that's not the best thing. Yeah, I remember watching videos of when it initially happened on our local news stations here in Los Angeles, and I remember seeing people almost getting hit by cars, and I was almost witnessing people essentially getting killed on the freeway because they were trying to protest. A little later, it got better, and it was kind of more just people gathering on the freeway since everybody else had. What I also didn't like was the fact that people went out and they tagged City Hall with a lot of obscenities about Trump. I heard, there was things being written, like I saw one sign, I forget what state or city it was. It was Trump with a swastika instead of the T. So, you have that kind of stuff going on, and that's what I think is angering some people about the protests. But you're right. Most of them have been peaceful. I have absolutely no problem with peaceful protests at all. I think most people wouldn't either. But you know what? It's just the country was divided, and I want to move on to our next topic. Literally, the country was divided. It was, if you look at the popular vote, it was essentially exactly the same. Hillary ended up winning the popular vote by, I think it was 200,000 something votes. I don't know if that's the closest election ever, but I would have to say that that's got to be one of the top 3 or 5 that's been super close. Trump ends up winning the Electoral College. Hillary wins the popular vote. Do you think that people are going to be calling for the Electoral College to be changed a little bit since Trump won the Electoral, Hillary won the vote of the people? Do you think there should be a change, or people are thinking about change?
I think educated people are thinking about that change. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I personally do not. I wanted to mention one more thing. I was actually very surprised at our generation, the millennials, who I believe did not go out and vote 100%.
Yes.
There were, I don't know the exact numbers and the specific stats, but I believe like in Florida, it was like 30% of the millennials went out and voted. So if you are someone who was not for Trump and you did not go out and vote, I don't believe you have a right to be upset or go out and voice your opinion, because
no, absolutely not.
Your right and your duty is to go out and vote to make a change. So the fact that our generation as a whole did not do their job, our job, to me, it's shocking to think that where most people are upset and want to do these protests and be angered and, all this stuff. Well, you have to also do your part. You can't be just one-sided. So that was something that I was very, very shocked by. Well, what do you think?
And there was another thing about just the whole media and everybody being kind of wrong about the election. I remember reports coming out a couple days before the election saying this is going to be the biggest turnout ever. We're going to have the most people voting. That didn't happen. I believe more people voted in the Bush-Gore 2000 election than they did this one. And we see now people getting obviously way more upset over the result of this one than that one. So yeah, I'm wondering what's kind of going through people's heads. If you didn't go out and vote, you got to be feeling some sort of insecurity about the fact that, I could have made the difference, especially since the popular vote was so close, and especially in some of those swing states. Wisconsin, I remember when I was following it throughout the night on channels like CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, that it was like only 2 million people were voting for the two candidates too. So it was kind of crazy that people weren't going out and voting, especially since there was so much interest. You look at any social media account, go look at Facebook during these elections every single day. People are talking about it, and then they go out and don't vote. It doesn't make any sense. Or they go and vote for Harambe, which 11,000 people voted for. That's not a lie. That is just a straight fact. 6,000 people voted for the alcoholic drink Hennessy during the election. So, when you have that kind of stuff going on and you're making jokes about it, and then people are going out and essentially protesting the election, you got to think what's going through people's heads a little bit, because that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Kanye West, 2020.
Oh yeah, no, I know. You know what though? I actually think he's gonna definitely get some following. I can't see the Democrats or Republicans taking him as a candidate, to be honest.
No.
But I think, as a another party, or maybe Libertarian Party or Green Party, or maybe the Kanye West Party that comes out for the election, I think that he's gonna have a little bit of a chance, since we did have more of a celebrity president now, a reality TV star turned president now. I've been hearing people say that Kim Kardashian is going to run.
Oh boy,
and all this weird stuff. I mean, actually, essentially, Kanye West is a member of the Kardashians anyway, so I guess that counts. But yeah, just a crazy election. I mean, it is absolutely unprecedented. The coverage this election got, the amount of interest, the results, because people did not expect Trump to win. And now we have these protests, and we'll see how long they kind of go. But, just a memorable election. I will never forget this one, for sure.
No, I will remember exactly when I have kids and, 30, 40 years down the road, I will remember this election like it was yesterday. And yes, one for the books. So, but like I said, we now owe Trump the opportunity to prove himself. And and make this country great, like he was saying. So he now gets that opportunity. He has 4 years to prove that to people who doubted him and who still doubt him to this day. So let's wait and see what he does, and then be able to make a judgment from there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And so that will move on to a more happy topic about this country, and something that the country is celebrating today. Today is Friday, November 11th, I believe. Is that
yes.
Yeah, so I don't even know what the date is. That's how out of it I am today. And so it's Veterans Day. Most of us know a veteran or are related to a veteran. I have a couple veterans in my family that served in our military forces. My grandfather, both of my grandfathers actually. My great uncle, one of my cousins, was in the military as well. And it's a good day to kind of give back to these people who do this for us, so that me and you, Jared, could do a podcast like this on the air, because
Exactly.
they're fighting for us. So I'll let you take it off and start off and just kind of give your opinion about Veterans Day and what you're doing today to kind of celebrate veterans.
Yes, it is. At work today, we have the restaurant that I work at. We have it's a great day for veterans.
What restaurant is that? What restaurant?
That would be Woody's Diner in Laguna Hills.
Cheap plug right there.
Yeah, cheap plug. Yes. No, what I mean by that is we do get a lot of veterans, retired veterans that do come in, and I get to speak with them regularly on a daily basis. So to be able to interact with them, and sometimes they will share a story here or there from their past experiences. So it is like I said, we can never say thank you enough, or we can never give back enough. There's no one in my immediate family who has served, but my best friend's dad is a Marine. One of my other good friends' brother is in the Navy. So I do know a lot of, close family friends who are either serving or have served. But it's a day to give thanks. And like you said, we would not be sitting here doing what we are doing today without them sacrificing their lives. So I just, want to say thank you again. And I know it will, never mean enough. And I can never say thank you enough. But thank you for all the veterans out there who have served, are currently serving, or who will serve in the future. We thank you.
Yeah, no, I can echo that statement as well. Having a couple family members and having some friends that some high school friends that have gone on and joined the military before, you just give thanks, because they don't have to do that. It's not a requirement of us to go into the military and serve in the military. And for people to actually choose to do that, you're thanking them, because they're putting their lives on the line. They're targeted by people around the world. So when we hear about the political candidates talk about, oh, well, we need to attack this certain country, or we need to do something about this certain country. These are the people going out and actually having to do that. It's not the politicians that talk about that. It's not us. It's these people. So, just really give thanks to these people. Obviously, veterans are not in service anymore, but they did it, and a lot of them were experiencing a very bad wars like Vietnam, wars like the Korean War, and wars like World War II. I don't know how many World War II veterans are actually around anymore. It's getting kind of tight time wise to talk to some of those veterans. So if you do know a veteran that was involved in World War II, pick their brain a little bit, find out what kind of how it was, and really especially thank them, because those were some of the worst wars we had, and not that the wars we've had recently are necessarily better or worse than World War II or Vietnam, but just some of the stories I've heard from those wars. Really give thanks to those people, because they really did put their life on the line for sure. So we're going to take a break a little bit. On the other side of the break, we're going to be talking about college football rankings. I know Jared wants to talk about the USC Washington game coming up.
Oh boy,
it is going to be a good game. I believe it's only one of the better college football games of the week. So on the other side of these couple songs, we will be back with the college football rankings and college football talk. OC Rock Radio, we are back with the Cover 2 podcast live edition for the first time ever. It's kind of weird. Normally when I do my shifts, it is light outside, but since we had the time change for the first time ever, also, it is dark outside during my 3 to 6 shift. So you're getting to see the first time it's been dark ever outside right now.
Jared. It's getting a little dark, man.
It is. It's getting strange. There's some birds flying around too, but enough about the studio.
It's not going to distract us. We're still going to get our job done.
Yeah, exactly. We know what we're doing. We're going to get this stuff done. Speaking of getting stuff done, the College Football Playoff Committee got stuff done Tuesday while everyone was following the election, and they came out with some rankings, right? And that was actually the thing I was following the most on election night. That's a lie. But so the new rankings came out, and the top 4 teams are Alabama, Clemson, Michigan, and Washington in that order. And also Ohio State and Louisville are 5 and 6 with 1 loss, and then there's a ton of 2-loss teams right after that. But Jared, I want to get your opinion on those 4 teams, and if it should be changed or if a team should be in the top 4.
I agree with those 4 teams being not necessarily in that order, but I agree that those 4 teams currently right now are the best 4 teams in college football. I would actually put Michigan ahead of Clemson. Now, I'm a little hesitant because I'm not sure about Michigan's schedule so far. They had 6 their opening season. I'm sorry, their first 6 games were all at home. So to me, their real test didn't really come. I believe this week they play Iowa. So Iowa might really be their first big test of the year. They blew out Michigan State. They played Colorado earlier in the year.
Dame too?
Have they played Notre Dame?
I mean, Notre Dame's not good, but I just saying that kind of perceived tough schedule.
Yes.
Notre Dame would have been one of them. Obviously, Michigan State would have been one of them too. So I think you can't do much about that. But you're right. No, Iowa's going to be a tough test.
I believe it will, and it's in Iowa. It's the primetime ABC 5 o'clock matchup. So I believe Iowa's going to come out fired up and ready to give them their best shot. To me, Michigan's only tough test this year will be at Ohio State, the last game of the season. That is going to be huge. Yes, that could make or break Michigan seasons right there. So that would be my only disagreement with the top 4 is I would put Michigan at number 2, Clemson at number 3. I do like Washington finally getting into the top 4. Last week for the first rankings when Texas A&M leaped Washington, I was very surprised as you were as well. I can see by the look on your face right now. I can't believe it. Alabama is to me still the number 1 team, and as it's going right now, I see Alabama and Michigan fighting for that national championship game. What are your thoughts, Nick?
No, I'm going to agree with you. I think Michigan should be number 2, but I think based off who they play and who they still have to play, I think it will, no doubt, they'll end up being number 2 or maybe even number 1. I think Clemson's schedule is way too easy for the rest of the season, so they'll eventually drop down to possibly 3 or even 4 in the rankings. As long as if they stay undefeated, they'll still be in the playoff. But I think because they kind of faced their tougher schedule already this season, and even their ACC championship game matchup, if they were to go undefeated, would be an easier team. It wouldn't be a Louisville, it wouldn't be a Florida State. It would be someone else who's obviously not worthy of being in that game. But so their schedule, they can kind of skate through. They earn their spot by beating good teams early in the season, but I think eventually Michigan will end up leapfrogging them, so I don't think that matters as much. Washington, Like you just mentioned, I totally thought they should have been in the 4 last week. The committee looks, the committee looks a little worse putting a team like Texas A&M in there last week and then having Texas A&M lose to a team like Mississippi State, who's a very average SEC team. They're not a super good SEC team like I say an LSU or an Alabama or Ole Miss or someone like that. So I definitely agree with you. I think the Final Four, I think Michigan should be number 2, but I don't think it really matters that much. I want to turn to the 5 and 6 teams, though, who are Louisville and Ohio State. These are both one-loss teams. Ohio State having lost to Penn State, who is number 10 on the rankings, and Louisville having lost to only Clemson, who's obviously, like we were just saying, number 2. Jared, what are the ways they can get into the Final Four?
They both of their losses were very close games.
Mm-hmm.
They were in both of those games. Obviously, that Ohio State-Penn State game came down to a blocked field goal that Penn State returned for a touchdoin, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know if they returned it for a
or
touchdown.
if they did. I know they blocked Ohio State's field goal.
Yeah, that was a big play, and then Louisville and Clemson came down to the last plays.
Yes.
Like that was a very, probably the best game of the college football season this week.
Yes.
So yeah, both teams didn't get blown out or anything like that. So
No.
they definitely still deserve to be there. But again, so obviously, I'll just throw this out there. I think Ohio State has to beat Michigan.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, they don't beat Michigan, they're done.
They're not getting it.
And that's not an easy thing. Now, Michigan, like we said, hasn't faced one of those really good opponents. They faced a pretty good team in Iowa with a tough defense this week. But I just think that we don't know 100% yet about Michigan. From the looks of things, they're a Final Four team. But, we've seen crazier things happen in college football where a team like Ohio State will just, beat the crap out of Michigan or something like, and it'll be weird. So I think that's the way. How do you think Louisville gets in, though, having lost to Clemson? Their schedule isn't too hard.
Because Clemson is already in, I'm not. It's really going to have to be on Lamar Jackson, just like it has been all year.
Yep.
He's going to have to continue to just ride this team, and they're going to have to blow out their opponents in order to, get any further recognition. In my personal opinion, if they just go out and win by 20 points, 25, 15 to 25 points, I'm not sure that the committee is going to, give them that slight edge. But if they just go out and Lamar Jackson's getting 5-6 touchdowns a game and they happen to win by, 30 plus, 40 plus points, then I think they have a little better chance of at least swaying the committee to give them a second chance. Realistically, as long as these top 4 teams who are in right now do not screw up and they don't, choke and lose a game, unfortunately, I don't see how Louisville or Ohio State can get in.
Well, and obviously Michigan would have to, by going unscathed, would have to beat Ohio State.
Yes.
So that's for sure. But yeah, Louisville being in Clemson's division, that's the thing that just really hurt them. And what's funny is they actually, they're the only teams really that will have a chance in the end of topping Clemson. Louisville, to actually get into the ACC championship game, would have to have Clemson lose twice. And that's more than likely not going to happen. I'm just checking their schedule real quick. I want to see who they play. Yeah, they play Wake Forest, and then they'll beat Wake Forest. They play at Houston. That's kind of an interesting matchup.
That's an interesting
but
game.
That's not a ACC game, which might be a little different. And then they play Kentucky. So, yeah, their schedule isn't too hard. It's going to be hard for Louisville to get in.
It will. It will be. I think they had a very tough loss against Clemson, and I give them all the credit in the world. Unfortunately, I think that loss is going to come back and haunt them when it comes down to the Final Four.
No, I think it will too.
Yeah.
So I think as far as the one-loss teams, I think the only team that can really get in without some major help is Ohio State, and all they have to do is beat Michigan. That's all.
It's not hard.
Yeah, it's
not hard at all.
Yeah,
Michigan has the
Jabril
Peppers and 6'6", 240-pound quarterback that looks like Ben Roethlisberger, who can chuck it 70 yards and then he can run and blow over the linebacker. So
yeah, there's no problem with that. That should be a easy win.
Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's not. It's going to be a very tough game. Let's move on to the 2-loss teams. And I'm going to bring up this gripe right now. And we were talking about this right before we came on this segment. Oklahoma State is number 13 right now at 7-2. Everybody's been talking about the Big 12 having had a bad year and that they're not going to get into the Final Four. Oklahoma State, remember, lost to Central Michigan on a Hail Mary play that should not have happened earlier in the season. So realistically, if the refs would have called that right, Oklahoma State would be 8-1 right now, and they'd be in that one-loss conversation. What's your take on that, Jared?
I think Oklahoma State got the bad end, the bad draw, the bad end of the stick. Unfortunately, I don't have the confidence in Oklahoma State that maybe some others do. Even if they did have that one loss and say instead of them being 13, they were, in the top 10, maybe 7, 6, 7, somewhere around there. I just don't see them beating the likes of, Michigan, Clemson, even Washington. I feel that Oklahoma State is kind of the second tier. They're not on that elite tier of college football teams. So, yes, they definitely got cheated, and that was wrong. They should be 8-1, no question about it. But, I actually would prefer to have a team like Washington in that Final Four because I believe it would be a better matchup going up against the likes of Alabama and Michigan and Clemson. What do you think?
No, I agree with you. I don't think they'd actually do anything if they got in the Final Four. Do you think? I think the committee should have put them a little higher. Maybe put them, as one of the two lost teams, maybe 7th or 8th, just to say, hey, if you guys end up going throughout the season and end up 10-2, realistically, you're really 11-1. And if a bunch of these teams lose, maybe you'll have a chance. I think their big problem was they lost to Baylor. That was their other loss, and Baylor is showing that they're not that good of a team.
No, Baylor just got
a ton of problems
whooped
besides football
by
too.
TCU.
And so I think that would be knock. I just wanted to bring that up because I think a lot of people don't remember the fact that game against Central Michigan. If you just look at on paper, they lost to Central Michigan, who's ranked, but they didn't. They were bad penalty was called. They gave him another play, and then Central Michigan threw a Hail Mary that shouldn't have counted. But, Jared, other two lost teams you think still have a chance at the Final Four?
Final Four. Is it bad if I say none?
No.
I mean, is that you know what? I think there's such a gap from the elite teams to the second and third tiers that I don't see any of these two lost teams having a chance. I think early, even though it's better to lose a game in the beginning of the season than late in the season. I think they've already blown it. These teams like Alabama and Michigan, they look unstoppable right now. So it's going to take one of these elite teams to fall for one of these other two lost teams to be able to even scratch the surface. That's just
Yeah, and this is the one I was going to bring up was Penn State. Because their losses have been to Pittsburgh, which is a rivalry game for them. It's the state of Pennsylvania. And then Michigan, which, you can say Michigan's obviously really good. The problem with them is they're in Michigan and Ohio State's division. So they're not going to we got to look at teams somehow that have a chance at getting into the championship game. Because I think any of these teams that can't get into a championship game with two losses, there's no chance. I mean, Louisville with one loss probably won't do it. I'll bring up one team, though, and it's Auburn. Auburn still has not played Alabama yet. If they beat Alabama, does that somehow cause the committee to change their minds about them and kind of just vault them into the Final Four because nobody really thinks Alabama's going to lose?
I don't. I've wanted to like Auburn all year long. I want to see another SEC team such as Auburn or LSU or one of those big other powerhouses just go in and knock off Alabama. And because of the Alabama-Auburn rivalry, I really want to see Auburn go in there and just knock them off. But even the games that Auburn has played so far, I haven't seen that just killer instinct of we're just going to go out and dominate a team for 4 quarters and win by 50 points. Somehow, some way, whether Auburn is playing another SEC opponent or they're playing a non-conference opponent, I don't see them being that dominant force. They're having to squeak by wins. In the fourth quarter, they're having to, still get a touchdown or get a big stop on defense to get the win. So I don't have the confidence in Auburn. I'm actually surprised that they're ranked number 9.
Well, I'll tell you exactly why.
Like I said, I do like Auburn as a team, and I want to root for them. I want to, but I can't put my money on him.
Okay, I'm gonna disagree with you on that a little bit because I didn't believe that Auburn team that went undefeated that one year with all the Hail Marys and the whole thing against Alabama. I didn't think they deserved to be there either. So I'm gonna disagree on the fact that just because they don't play as well, they don't look as well, that they can't be in. But even more of a reason to put them in. You mentioned why they're ranked so high. Their only losses have been to number 2 Clemson and number 8 Texas A&M this year. And if they were to beat Alabama, they would be in the SEC championship game as well and play a team like Florida and Tennessee, who's definitely a formidable opponent. So I think if we had to pick, at least for me, the one team that can get in with 2 losses is Auburn. But obviously they have to beat Alabama. They have to win the SEC championship game as well.
Yes.
On the other side of this break, we're going to be playing the first ever live edition of Do You Care? To be honest, there's probably not going to be any difference to the live and the normal one, but I'm just going to bill it because it's different. It's going to be live. So on the other side of this, these next couple songs, we'll be doing Do You Care?
He absolutely betrayed his cause. As far as I'm concerned, Colin Kaepernick is absolutely irrelevant. I don't want to see him again. I don't want to hear from him again. I don't want to hear a damn word about anything that he has to say about our nation, the issues that we have, racial injustices, needing change, etc., etc.
I've ridiculed everyone on the roster. I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the he wants.
You are listening to the live version of the Cover 2 podcast. Once again, I'm Nick Nenad.
And I'm Jared Smith.
And right now we're going to play a game that we love to play, and it's Do You Care? Now, this game, for anybody that's listening for the first time, what we do is we give the other guy a question, and we say, do you care about this event? Simple enough. So, first question we're going to ask is to Jared. Jared, do you care that Colin Kaepernick didn't vote?
Yes, I do care, and it's because of his actions leading up to this point. Kneeling for the national anthem, growing out his hair, saying, I despise Trump. All of his actions, they need some type of meaning to fall back on. He finally came out about a month or two ago and said that he, was going to donate $1 million to specific charities and organizations to help, which is fantastic. But as an American citizen, you have a duty to also vote and to back up and validate your words. So the fact that he did not do that, echoing the words of Stephen A. Smith, who's on First Take, ESPN, I don't want to hear from Colin Kaepernick. I don't want to hear another word about him being angry or upset or kneeling or anything like that, because to me, he did not fulfill his duty of voting. End of story, period. Nick, do you care? The UFC 205 is this Saturday at Madison Square Garden.
I do care. Unfortunately, I will not be able to see it. I will be on the broadcasting call of Saddleback College's game, so shout listen to that. That's going to be on OC Rock Radio at 6 o'clock. It's another cheap plug. I do care about UFC 205, though. Very good fight. Conor McGregor, Eddie Alvarez. But that doesn't really matter to me as much as the fact that the New York finally is allowing UFC fights to happen in their state. The last couple of years, UFC wasn't allowed to go to New York. And, they weren't allowed to use the Madison Square Garden as an event, the best arena in the world, in my opinion. Besides maybe Staples Center. Staples Center is pretty good here for us LA folks. But MSG, historic stadium. So I think it's a big, big up for the UFC to be able to finally be in New York. As far as the fights go, it's Eddie Alvarez and Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor trying to become the lightweight champion. He already is the featherweight champion, so he'd actually have 2 title belts, which would just fuel his ego a little more. That's a good fight. They also have Woodley and Thompson. They're going to be fighting it out. And also, I see Chris Weidman's on the card as well. It's the same with Misha Tate. So it's a good card. Dana White was saying that he stacked the card on purpose. MSG. And so, yeah, no, I definitely do care. UFC 205 is going to be great this weekend. Jared, do you care that your Dallas Cowboys are likely not going to play Tony Romo this weekend?
I do not care, because of the role that they're on. If for those of you who have been following us on our normal podcast weekly, I've been very adamant that when Romo is healthy, I want him back now. And I still feel that way, but the more and more Dak plays well and the more and more they keep winning, it's getting harder and harder for me to still believe that. I still have a lot of faith in Romo, and I still think that when healthy, Romo is a better quarterback today than Dak Prescott is. I think Dak Prescott, he has all the potential in the world. Sky's the limit. So, it's getting tougher and tougher for me to believe that. But because they're playing so well and they have such a vibe going on, I'm okay with Romo not suiting up this week, especially because Pittsburgh does a lot of exotic blitzes and they like to come after the quarterback a lot. So this wouldn't necessarily be the right game for Romo to come back to. So I'm okay with that. But towards the next game in the next couple of weeks, I still want my man to get back in there and get one more crack at it to see if he can get this team a championship. Nick, do you care that the Clippers of all teams have the best record in the NBA?
I do care because coming into this season, and you remember what I said about the Clippers on our NBA predictions podcast. I said the Clippers were the third best team in the West. I said they're a legitimate championship contender if they can just figure out all the injuries and what goes through their head in the playoffs. But I think the team is changing a little bit. They have that great bench. They're starting to play really well. I mean, they've really beat down the last two teams they played. One was Detroit, who's a very good team in the East, and the other is Portland, who Portland beat them in the playoffs last year. I think they beat them by like 30 the other night. And Portland is perceived as one of the better teams in the West. So I think the Clippers are for real this year. We'll have to see how they face against Golden State. They're actually playing the Thunder right now. So we'll, if you're watching that game, hopefully you listen to the podcast as well. But so we'll see how they play against good teams. But yeah, I definitely care. Clippers are for real this year. Jared, do you care that there is going to be no discipline for the Monday Night Football refs about what they did in the Bills-Seahawks game around halftime?
I absolutely care. I am getting very tired of the number one watched sport in the United States being the National Football League, and they do not have full-time referees. I think it's a disgrace. It's unbelievable. Major League Baseball, National League Hockey, and the NBA. They all have full-time paid referees. The NFL, for some random reason, making billions of dollars a year, doesn't want to fork out the money to pay their refs full-time so that during the week, these referees can practice and review game tape so they're able to be better on game days. It's sad. It slows down the game, especially for Monday night. Everyone tunes into Monday night, and that tends to happen. It doesn't look good for the sport. I watch football every Sunday, and when I was watching that game, I wanted to turn it off. I was like, this isn't. I don't want to watch this anymore. It wasn't good. So yes, NFL, get your heads together, get these referees on full time so we can have better officiated games. Nick, do you care that the Cleveland Browns are 0-10, the big donut?
No, I don't care. But I just want to say that I called this before the season. I said that there's no hope for the Browns, and they literally haven't won a game. So, no, I do not care. But, for those Browns fans, you had a tough week. It sucks that you guys just have the worst team, the worst organization in sports history that you have to cheer for. But the Browns, I do not care, but I called it. I just want to say that I called it. Jared, do you care that Jose Fernandez won Comeback Player of the Year as voted by the players?
Yes, I do, and for the main fact that it was voted by the players. I think that it's still fantastic because this is, when you really get down to it, this is voting about what Jose Fernandez did during the season as an athlete. This isn't about his off-field issues and obviously his death and what happened. So yes, on the field and how he pitched and how he played for the Marlins, yes, I 100% agree with the players that he definitely deserves the recognition that he received. Obviously, very sad the findings that have come out in the recent weeks about the incident. But yes, as a player, he was a rising star and one of the next real faces of Major League Baseball. Nick, last but not least, do you care that the college basketball season starts tonight?
I don't necessarily care that it starts tonight. I'm not going to be watching the games, but I do care because college basketball is fun to watch. There's a lot of like switching, and there's a lot of as far as the rankings go, there's a lot of teams that lose all the time. The more and more, I see this with all college sports, the more and more we kind of move on with the college sports, the more and more upsets we see. And basketball is just one of them. You see the students, they really go crazy in those tight packed arenas and those old arenas like Duke has and stuff. I did bring this up because I wanted to bring up the fact that I still want college basketball to move and say that you can't leave until your second year of college or your third year, a lot like the NFL does. I think it hurts the college basketball season, especially in the beginning, and that's why I said I didn't really care about it starting today, because you have all these one-and-done players that are there essentially to show NBA teams who they are. They're not there for their colleges. So I still think they need to change that. I don't care that the basketball season starts tonight, but I do care about college basketball season starting right now because it definitely is fun to watch. Now, before we go and move on to our final segment, I know we wanted to talk a little bit about some stuff we forgot about college football, and since we were on the topic of college sports. So this is the end of Do You Care? But we're going to have a little segment right here where we talk a little bit more about college football. Jared, what did you want to say about LSU?
Yeah, a little extra segment here.
I've never done that before.
No, we haven't. So a little extra for you guys here since we're live.
First live edition. We're mixing things up.
That's right. I was very shocked by LSU being dropped 11 spots, even though they only lost to Alabama 10-0. Through the first three quarters, they had shut out Alabama. It was 0-0 going into the fourth quarter, and they only gave up 10 points to the number one ranked team in the nation. And then for them to drop 11 spots, West Virginia's ahead of them, North Carolina's ahead of them. Let's see who else. Utah, Oklahoma State, Washington State is ahead of them. Are you kidding me right now? Mike Leach? I'm not even going to go there. For those of you who listen to our podcast normally, you understand how we feel about Washington State and Mike Leach, but I won't go there. Mike Leach, yes. So I'm just very surprised by how the committee dropped them 11 spots. I hope LSU can win out their last three games and hopefully get back and at least to the teens, if not the top 10, because I feel that they do have the team for that.
I agree with you. That doesn't make a lot of sense that they'd moved down that long, especially since they looked really good against the best team in the nation. So I don't know where the committee's head's been the last 2 weeks with some of these picks. Texas A&M at number 4 last week, LSU moving down. But speaking of Coach teams, let's move on to USC and Washington, which is the biggest college football game of the weekend, especially here in LA with this resurgence from USC, starting the season 1-3, and now they're 6-3, and they play this Washington team that everyone just expects to get into the Final Four. I think this is a make or break game for multiple USC reasons. And what I mean by that is I think Clay Helton's job will be solidified or in question based on what happens in this game. And I saw Jared kind of gave me a face there. But I think if Clay Helton can beat Washington this Saturday, I really do think that he's going to be the guy, and they'll sign him to an extension. Actually, how long is his contract right now?
5 years.
He did get the extension. Okay,
yes,
I didn't
he
think
did.
He got the extension
yes.
yet. But so I think that then it will kind of prove that extension is for real. I think if he loses, though, I want to retract a little bit what I just said. I don't think his job is on the hot seat, but I think people will be thinking, is this really the right guy? He can't beat the really good teams. It's a 4-loss team. But I just think it's a make-or-break game for Clay Helton. I think it's a make-or-break game for Sam Darnold to see if he's real, the quarterback for USC. He's San Clemente boy. We do this show in the OC Rock radio studio, which is about 15 minutes away from where Sam Darnold went to high school. But I think it's for Darnold and for Helton, This is a make or break game for them. What do you think, Jared?
You know, I am going to disagree with you. I don't necessarily think it's a make or break game. Starting off the season, USC was 1-3, and then they made that quarterback change and they went to Darnold, the freshman, right? I think that was a brilliant move by their head coach, and one that I don't think a lot of head coaches would make. I do think that younger players are, freshmen to sophomores, they're playing earlier in their years now. But to have a 1-3 start and then to turn to a freshman, I think that takes some guts. I believe that Coach Helton does have a lot of confidence because he did just get that 5-year extension. And so even if USC loses this game to Washington, which ultimately I think they will, I think it's going to be a very, very tough game, and it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. I think Washington's quarterback, Jake Browning, is unbelievable in the Heisman conversation right now, and I think he makes a play at the end of the game to seal the deal for Washington. But going back to USC, even if they do lose, I think Helton's job is safe for at least this season. Now, what I've been telling Nick for the last couple weeks is I feel that USC has a very, very talented team. I think they're just very young and inexperienced. So I want to give Helton another year. If Sam Darnold takes control of this quarterback job throughout all of next offseason and into next season, then I really want to see what happens. If they come out flat again and they start 1-3, 1-4, and they're not winning games, then I think his job is on the hot seat. But for right now, I think he's safe.
What's your prediction on the game? Who do you think wins?
I think Washington wins. I'm going to go 35-31 Washington.
I'm going to disagree. I think USC, I think the Trojans get it done. I went to their game against Oregon last week, and they looked really, really good. And I think, I'm not saying that Washington isn't good. I think it'll be a fantastic game. I see a score like that, like a 38-35 game. I think USC is going to pull the upset, though. It's going to be tough in Husky Stadium. I think they'll pull the upset. We'll begin to do this discussion of next week who will be in that fourth spot. But, yeah, no, I'm going to go with the Trojans. And that will do it as far as the Do You Care and a little bit of college football segment. We'll end the show with some Chicago Cubs talk on the other side of this music. This is the Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock Radio. We are back for the final part of the live version of the Cover 2 podcast. One last time, I'm Nick Nedad.
And I'm Jared Smith.
And this is the Cover 2 podcast. We're going to end it off on something that's a little outdated, but we want to talk about the Cubs World Series victory and just what that's meant essentially for the United States this last couple days. I think a lot of people forgot about the Cubs because of the election. We just wanted to talk about it because we didn't get to talk about it on our previous podcast. The Cubs defeated the Cleveland Indians in one of the best baseball games I've ever seen, one of the best sporting games I've ever seen.
No doubt.
And the parade was crazy. The game was just insane. Jared, I'll let you take it away. I know you wanted to talk about specific plays in the game, but first of all, what did you feel when they finally won and you realized after 108 years the Cubs are the world champions?
You know, for not even being a Cubs fan, I was excited. I almost jumped out of off my couch.
Same with me. And I'm a Dodger fan, and they kicked us out.
Yes, and it's just, so to be a fan, to see the reactions of the fans, people crying. There was a woman who got interviewed on the news the day after who was born the year that the Cubs last made it to the World Series in 1945. It's just, it's really, really, truly amazing to see, just the fact that I'm kind of still in shock. I think the players might still even be shocked. I'm sure they're on vacation and, doing their thing.
A couple of them were on Saturday Night Live last weekend.
Oh, yes. But, it was truly one of the best baseball games that I've personally witnessed and watched. To go back and forth, the Cubs were pretty much winning the majority of the game, and then in the eighth inning, magic happened with Aroldis Chapman in the game for the Cubs, throwing 100 miles an hour every time. And who was up to bat?
It was Rajai Davis.
Yes, Rajai Davis. Thank you. And he just chokes up on the bat, just trying to just make contact with the ball. And he somehow hits I don't want to call it luck because he definitely had a strategy, but, one of the best hits off of Chapman that you will ever see. And the fact that ball went out of the park, the camera went immediately to LeBron James. He was freaking out. The crowd just erupted, and it just, it couldn't end in 9 innings. It needed to go that one extra. It's the World Series, Game 7, everything on the line. I know, Nick, you're even more of a baseball fan than I am, so I want to get your thoughts.
I mean, it was amazing. There was something in the air, though. I had a feeling that it wasn't going to be the Cubs' night. Even though they were winning, I had this feeling like, you know what, I don't see the streak ending. Something's going to happen. There's too much time. And then they pulled Kyle Hendricks out, which I thought was a total mistake because he was just rolling. They brought in Lester, and immediately when they did that, I think the score was 5-1, maybe 4-1. And no, I think it was 5-1. And Lester came in, and you had that weird bounce that hit David Ross's helmet, and 2 runs came into score on a pass ball, which never happens. And it was a little bit like, that's a little interesting. Why would that happen to a team that's been rolling? And then immediately, so I started thinking, I was like, this may not happen. Then David Ross hit a home run. And you're like, okay, maybe it will happen. Maybe the Cubs will do it. And then, of course, we get into that crazy 8th inning. Brandon Guyer comes up, another guy that choked up on the bat, hit a double on a high fastball that was 102 miles an hour on Chapman. Pretty much impossible to hit, and he hits a double in the gap. He makes it a 2-score game. And then when Davis hit that home run, I literally yelled like if the Dodgers hit a home run, or when the Kings won the Stanley Cup when they scored the goal in overtime to actually win the physical Stanley Cup. It was amazing, just the feelings I had during that game. It was like one of my teams was on the line. And then as the game progressed into the 9th inning, I actually wanted the Indians to win because I wanted to see that stadium go nuts and them to walk off. I've never seen a team walk off in the World Series. I didn't get to see Joe Carter's home run, so I really wanted to see that. It didn't happen, and then the rain came down, and immediately I knew, I was like, the Cubs are going to win now. Something weird's going to happen. Immediately, they went back to being the Cubs. They started getting little base hits. They drove in runs. They win the 9th inning, and it was, again, they started to lose it again, and they just didn't. They ended up winning the game. And when Rizzo caught that ball at first, it hit me. I was like, oh, my God. The Cubs just won the World Series for the first time in 108 years. And all those people in Chicago are just going nuts. So, yeah, as a baseball fan, that was the best game I've ever seen. I just said a second ago, that's the best sporting event I've ever seen. And I thought that Game 7 between Cleveland and Golden State was good. I thought that Lakers Game 7 when they played Boston, back in 2008, I thought that was good. So this was just amazing. What was behind it, the 2 teams with the longest droughts in baseball fighting out. One of them was going to end it. It ended up being the Cubs. Now, unfortunately, the team with the longest sports drought is my Arizona Cardinals, which I didn't know until Fox had to bring that up on their post-game show. That kind of made me mad a little bit. But hopefully Cardinals get the Super Bowl this year. Shout out to the Cardinals. So now I want to turn it to the parade. So the parade, everybody does this. They have their parade. They all go on their buses. The crowd goes crazy. They usually have a couple thousand, or if you're in bigger cities like Chicago, New York, and LA, you tend to have around 1 million people show up. The Cubs got 5 million people to show up to their parade. Jared, give me the significance on the 5 million people at that parade.
First of all, I just it's unbelievable. I mean, I can understand it. You haven't won in 108 years. I mean, I don't think anyone in Chicago
Everyone
went to
in the
work.
city hadn't seen a World Series.
No one had. So it was newfound territory. Just a little perspective on how this was ranked. Number 7, the top 6 other rankings.
It was ranked number 7 as far as a gathering of people.
Yes. So the top 6 other gatherings. There was the World Youth Day, which happened in 1995. There was 5 million. Pope Francis in 2015, 6 million people showed up. There were funerals in Iran, and a funeral in Iran. 1989, there were 10 million people who showed up. There was another funeral in India in 1969. 15 million people showed up. Yes. There was a festival in Iraq in 2014, which turned out 17 million people. And there was a pilgrimage in India in 2013 that turned out 30 million people.
Oh my gosh.
Listeners, what we're trying to say is the fact that these top 6 other events were worldwide events.
It was religious stuff. It was celebrations. It was funerals.
Yes.
And then Major League Baseball World Series celebration.
I mean, it does make sense, I guess, to us, but on a national, perspective, it's unreal. And to be there, that is something that those people will never ever forget. And I'm very happy that the Cubs won. I wanted the Cubs to win so they could finally taste that victory and get that sour taste that they've had in their mouths for years out.
What do you think the significance is of it for baseball itself? Do you think this helped baseball out? Because a lot of people have been talking about baseball kind of declining, and it's been too long and stuff. Do you think this helped it out? Or do you think with that kind of streak that everybody knew about, do you think that hurts baseball a little bit?
Oh no, I think this definitely helps baseball, especially from a rating standpoint. I think the amount of people who were watching this World Series for no other reason than because they wanted to see the Cubs win. And let's not forget that Cleveland also has a drought of...
It's from 1940s.
Yes, so they also have their own drought going on, but everyone was focusing on the Cubs. My stepmom, who can't stand a lick of baseball, we force her to go to one baseball game a year. It's her duty. She has to go to one. But other than that, she says it's like watching grass grow. She'd rather stick needles in her eyes.
One game, Dodgers or Angels?
Mostly Angels, I would say. Okay. Yeah, sorry, my man, but we live here. Yeah. Anyways, what I'm saying is she was even on the couch watching it and interested. So I think it definitely benefited Major League Baseball as a whole. And, if the Cubs were to lose, the whole offseason story would be, can the Cubs get over the hump this year? And that would be how the media would spin it. This year, it will probably be more towards the Cleveland Indians. But I think a lot of praise and respect will go to the Cubs. And, they have a very, very young, youthful team with a lot of stars, a lot of, young faces who are going to lead baseball into its, next generation and so on and so forth. So, yes, I do think it was good for baseball. What do you think?
I agree. I just wanted to ask the question because I've heard a lot of people say that because the Cubs won, there's not that story that story anymore, and that's true. There isn't the story anymore. I think more people will be interested in the Cubs. I think more people will be interested in watching baseball since essentially everybody watched that game. If people can expect that kind of games, I think that's what people see in the NBA and the NFL a lot. Is these games are really fun to watch, especially playoff games. So I think if people can get back on the baseball bandwagon a little bit, I think the Cubs help that. And I'm gonna agree with you. I think it will do nothing but good for baseball. I think that this World Series is one of those reasons that the NFL's ratings have been hurt a little bit. So it shows the power of what happened. You saw 5 million people were at a parade, so people really did care this year. That will do it for the first ever live edition of the Cover 2 podcast. This was fun, Jared. Right? Fun.
Let's do it again.
We got to do it again. We'll do it again soon. But I'll leave you guys off with we'll end the podcast with a little Enter Sandman here. That will do it for me, Nick Nia, as far as my shift goes. I want to thank Jared for being here for the podcast.
Yes, sir.
And you know what? This is OC Rock Radio, and go rock yourself.